He thought he was above the law, a racist cop who abused his power every chance he got. Until one day, he set up the wrong woman. What he didn't know was that this woman wasn't just another victim. She was about to become his new boss. And when the truth came out, his world crumbled in front of everyone. What would you do if someone in power tried to set you up? Stay quiet or fight back for justice? Tell us in the comments. Your answer might surprise you. Don't forget to subscribe to Rise Against Odds and hit the bell icon, because every story we tell proves that truth always wins over injustice. Officer Rick had a reputation around the precinct. He was arrogant, entitled, and worst of all, racist. He picked his targets carefully, always going after those he thought couldn't fight back. To him, it was a game of power. One evening, he spotted a black woman parking her car near the station. She was dressed sharply, calm, and confident, but Rick only saw another opportunity to assert dominance. With a smirk, he decided to teach her a lesson. He walked over, flashing his badge like a weapon. "Ma'am, you can't park here. I'll have to write you up." The woman glanced at him, unbothered. "I'm not breaking any rules, officer." Her voice was steady, almost too calm. But Rick wasn't interested in rules. He wanted control. He scribbled on his notepad, deliberately fabricating violations. "You think you know the law better than me? Let's see how smart you are when I tow your car." The woman tilted her head slightly, her eyes narrowing. She didn't argue, didn't beg, didn't even flinch. She just said softly, "Be very sure about what you're doing, officer. Some actions can't be undone." Rick chuckled. To him, she was just bluffing. Another citizen he could intimidate and walk away feeling powerful. But little did he know, the calm warning she gave him would soon turn his world upside down. Rick wasn't satisfied with just writing a ticket. He wanted to humiliate her. With a cruel grin, he called for backup and loudly announced, "We've got a suspicious vehicle here. Possible stolen registration." A few nearby officers glanced over, unsure why Rick was making such a scene. But he waved them off, acting like he had it all under control. He leaned closer to the woman. "Let's see how confident you are when your car gets impounded and you're dragged downtown for questioning." The woman raised an eyebrow, still composed. "Is that so?" she asked calmly. There was no fear in her voice, only quiet authority that Rick completely misread. Rick popped open her car door without permission, rummaging through her belongings as though he owned them. He held up her documents, scoffing. "Let's see, you say this is your car, but I'm not buying it." She sighed softly. "You're making a mistake, officer. A serious one." But Rick didn't hear her. He was too busy putting on a show, convinced he'd caught someone he could push around. Other officers watched from a distance, clearly uncomfortable. They knew Rick's behavior wasn't protocol, but no one wanted to confront him. He'd been getting away with this kind of thing for years. Finally, Rick slapped the papers against the hood of the car and said, "You're coming with me. We'll sort this out downtown. I'll make sure you remember this day." For the first time, the woman smiled. Not a nervous smile, but one of quiet confidence. She looked him dead in the eye and said, "Yes, officer, you will remember this day, more than you can imagine." Rick smirked again, mistaking her composure for weakness. But deep down, a tiny voice of doubt whispered that maybe, just maybe, he was crossing a line he'd regret. Rick marched the woman toward the precinct, still convinced he was in total control. He didn't notice the way some of the other officers avoided his gaze, whispering quietly among themselves. Something about this situation didn't feel right, but Rick was too blinded by his own ego to care. Inside the station, he made her sit at a desk while he exaggerated the charges. Suspected theft, fraudulent documents, resisting authority, he muttered as he typed, adding one false accusation after another. The woman sat still, her hands folded neatly, her eyes scanning the room with sharp observation. When she finally spoke, her words were calm but carried weight. You know, this is a legal officer. You're abusing your badge, and there will be consequences. Rick slammed his hands on the desk. You think anyone's going to believe you over me? I've been here for years. I know how things work. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Yes, you do know how things work, but not for much longer. That statement gave Rick pause. There was something unsettling about the certainty in her tone. She wasn't pleading, wasn't panicked. She was simply stating a fact. One of the younger officers nervously approached Rick. Sir, maybe we should double-check the records before processing her. Rick shot him a glare. Are you questioning me? The younger officer stepped back, immediately muttering an apology, but the woman leaned forward slightly and said in a low, deliberate voice, Listen to him, for your own sake. Rick chuckled, shaking off the unease creeping into his chest. He waved her off, telling himself she was bluffing. Still, the doubt was there now, gnawing at him. Why was she so calm? Why were other officers suddenly acting cautious? Rick ignored the warning signs. He thought he was untouchable. What he didn't know was that the clock was ticking, and his arrogant display was about to backfire in the most humiliating way possible. Rick finally dragged the woman toward the captain's office, grinning as though he was about to win some kind of prize. He barged in without knocking. Captain, I've got another one for you. Fraud, stolen ID, the works. But the office was empty. Rick frowned. Where's the captain? He muttered. Just then, the woman straightened her posture, stepped past him, and calmly took a seat behind the captain's desk. She opened a drawer, pulled out a folder with her name neatly printed on it, and placed it on the table. Rick blinked, confused. What do you think you're doing? That's the captain's chair. She looked him dead in the eye, her voice firm and commanding. You're right, officer. And as of this morning, I am the new captain of this precinct. The room went silent. Every officer nearby froze in place. Some smirked knowingly. Others looked away, ashamed they hadn't stepped in earlier. Rick's face drained of color. That's not possible, he stammered. He flipped through the folder on the desk and saw the official letter of appointment with her name. His jaw dropped. The woman leaned forward. You tried to humiliate me. You falsified charges, abused your badge, and thought no one would notice. But now, Officer Rick, it's you who will face the consequences. Rick stumbled back, stuttering. I didn't know. I thought. You thought wrong. She cut him off. Her voice echoed with authority. This precinct will no longer tolerate officers who misuse their power. Starting today, everything changes. The younger officer who had tried to warn Rick earlier stood taller, finally speaking up. Welcome, Captain. The entire station seemed to shift in that moment. Respect filled the air for the new leader who had just revealed her true position. Meanwhile, Rick's arrogance had turned into sheer humiliation. He had dug his own grave, and everyone knew it. Rick stood frozen, his arrogance stripped away. The woman, now revealed as Captain Daniels, stared him down with an authority he could no longer challenge. Sit down, officer, she ordered. Her tone was calm, but every word carried weight. Rick hesitated, then obeyed, sinking into the chair across from her desk. She opened the folder again. I've already reviewed complaints filed against you. Excessive force, intimidation, false reporting, a long history of misconduct. And today, you added one more to that list. Rick's mouth went dry. He glanced around, hoping for support, but none of the other officers came to his defense. They had seen enough. Captain Daniels continued, This station will not be a place where abuse of power thrives. You embarrassed this uniform. You embarrassed this community. And you embarrassed yourself. Rick stammered. Please, I didn't know you were. That's exactly the problem, she interrupted. Respect should never depend on rank, gender, or skin color. You should have treated me with dignity because I'm a human being, not because I wear this badge. Her words echoed through the room. Every officer present felt the truth in them. Some nodded quietly, finally seeing the difference between real authority and reckless power. Then came the final blow. Captain Daniels slid a paper across the desk. Effective immediately, you are suspended pending investigation. Turn in your badge and weapon. Rick's hands trembled as he unpinned his badge. The metallic sound of it hitting the desk felt heavier than any punishment he had ever faced. He knew his career was over. Captain Daniels stood, addressing the entire room. Let today be a lesson. This badge is a responsibility, not a weapon. We serve to protect, not to intimidate. And under my command, that will never be forgotten again. The room erupted with applause. For the first time, the station felt united, built on respect, not fear. And as Rick walked out, humiliated, he finally realized the very woman he tried to tear down had just risen as the strongest leader he had ever met.